Good afternoon and welcome to the Attorney General's 55th Annual Award Ceremony. My name is Craig Morford. I'm the Acting Deputy Attorney General, and it is a great pleasure and honor to serve as the Master of Ceremonies for this distinguished ceremony. We gather today to recognize a very special group of fellow employees, as well as several individuals from outside the Department of Justice who have made significant contributions toward the accomplishment of the Department's mission. We are also privileged to have family members, friends, and colleagues of the award recipients in attendance to help us pay tribute to them. Would you please remain standing for the presentation of colors by the Joint Armed Forces Honor Guard in the singing of the National Anthem, or playing of the National Anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking the Joint Armed Forces Honor Guard, pianist and trial attorney Ginny Lum, and vocalist and equal opportunity specialist Dorothy Williams with a round of applause. As we begin our ceremony this afternoon, I would like to introduce the senior leadership of the Department of Justice who are with us here today. These individuals will join the Acting Attorney General in presenting awards to employees and their components. I would ask that each individual please stand when introduced. I would also ask that you hold your applause until I've completed the introductions. With us this afternoon are Paul Clement, the Solicitor General, Gregory Katsas, the Acting Associate Attorney General, Thomas Barnett, the Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division, Brian Benchkowski, the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legislative Affairs, Stephen Bradbury, the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General, Office of Legal Counsel, Jeffrey Buchholz, the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Division, Rena Komisak, the Acting Attorney General, Civil Rights Division, Inspector General Glenn Fine, Alice Fisher, the Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division, Director Harley Lappin, Federal Bureau of Prisons, Lee Loftus, Assistant Attorney General for Administration, Ken Melson, Director of the Executive Office for U.S. Attorneys, Richard Morrison, Acting Assistant Attorney General of the Tax Division, Director Bob Mueller, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Melanie Ann Puste, Director of the Office of Information and Privacy, Michael Sullivan, the Acting Director, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, Ronald Tempest, the Acting Assistant Attorney General for the Environmental and Natural Resources Division, Ken Weinstein, the Assistant Attorney General, National Security Division. Representing the Drug Enforcement Administration is Deputy Administrator Michelle Leonard. Representing the United States Marshals Service is Deputy Director Brian Beckwith. Representing the Executive Office for United States Trustees is William T. Neary, the U.S. Trustee for Regions 6 and 11. Representing the Office of Justice Programs is Robert Flores, Director of the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. Also present is Vince Marconi, the Assistant Director of Human Resources and Director of Special Events, who will serve as our narrator for today's ceremony. Please join me in a round of applause for the department's senior leadership. You may be seated. Also joining us today are the United States attorneys for several of the districts whose employees are being honored. It is my pleasure to introduce those United States attorneys to you this afternoon. And again, I would ask that you hold your applause until I have introduced all of those present. Joining us today are Alexander Acosta, the Southern District of Florida, Troy Ide, District of Colorado, Michael Garcia, Southern District of New York, George Holding, Eastern District of North Carolina, Rosalind Moskoff, Eastern District of New York, Chuck Rosenberg, Eastern District of Virginia, Rod Rosenstein, District of Maryland, Paula Silsby, District of Maine, Robert Correnti, District of Rhode Island, and Patrick Fitzgerald, the Northern District of Illinois. Please welcome the United States attorneys. I next have a very important introduction. It is my distinct honor to introduce to you the Acting Attorney General of the United States of America, the Honorable Peter D. Keisler.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It's a very special honor for me to be able to welcome all of you here today, in particular to be able to welcome the recipients of this year's awards, and also to welcome the families of the recipients who have supported them in their work and who have come here today, along with many of the recipients' friends and colleagues, to support them once again. Thank you all for coming, and welcome. Today, we honor exceptional achievement. Sometimes it's achievement in a specific case or matter or investigation of surpassing importance. Sometimes an award is given not for a specific matter, but for consistently excellent performance by an individual over the course of a career that may have spanned decades, and sometimes to newer employees who have distinguished themselves in the first few years on the job. For those of you who are our guests and who have never been to this ceremony before and who may not be completely familiar with the way in which we award recognition, please know that these are our very highest awards, reserved for our most admired colleagues. They represent our effort to identify the very best of the very best across the entirety of the department and its more than 100,000 employees, and across all geographic, organizational, job description, subject matter boundaries. And we also give some awards to our most valued partners outside of the department in the law enforcement community. What today's recipients have in common, the agent from Puerto Rico, the paralegal from New York, the prosecutor from California, the automotive worker foreman from Kentucky, the civil litigator from Illinois, the marshal from Michigan, the prison psychologist from Oklahoma, the office assistant from our Drug Enforcement Administration office in Kabul, Afghanistan, and all of the other recipients, what they have in common is that they have achieved the very highest level of accomplishment in the work that they do. Now, I am very much aware that the business of today is the presentation of the awards to the recipients and not any remarks that I might make, so I am just going to limit myself to 3 observations about the people we're honoring today and the nature of the work that they do. First, as to the significance of the work, I think you will find as you listen to the descriptions of the work in the course of the awards that it is impossible not to be really struck by its breadth and its importance. The department's work includes leading the effort against violent crime, organized crime, hate crime, illegal drugs, corporate fraud, and tax fraud. It includes counterterrorism investigations that are essential to preventing the next attack. And it includes internal investigations and reviews designed to make sure that in doing that work we fully comply with all of our obligations. It includes very dangerous assignments like the apprehension of fugitives and the management of prisons. And it includes work that defines our values as a country, like the protection of civil rights, the protection of the environment, the protection of consumers and competition, protection of the public's right to integrity in elected and appointed officials. All of those aspects of the department's mission and others are among those that are being honored in the awards we're giving today. And it is among, I think, the most valuable and important work in which anyone anywhere could be engaged. Second, in addition to the importance of this work, I think it's important to emphasize how very difficult and challenging it can be, how uphill it often is, and how, while it's going on, long before you get to the point of time of the award ceremony, how uncertain the outcome is. And I say this because we're going to be hearing about success after success after success today, and I think there is a tendency when a big success has been achieved and a little time has passed and you're looking back, it sort of acquires a false air of inevitability. It starts to seem like it really could only have come out one way because you know how it came out. And I think military historians, sometimes writing with the luxury of analyzing a battle long after it's done, sometimes write this way, as if it was clear how it would all come out. Well, it wasn't clear how any of these things would come out, and I think it's important to remember how highly contingent and uncertain the outcome of all these successes seemed and was while the work was going on in real time, and how crucially the successes we're hearing about today depended upon really hard work and creativity and the aggregation of countless numbers of sound judgments reached by very skilled people confronting often agonizingly difficult questions along the way. And third, I just want to say a word about sacrifice. These jobs are a strange mix. Jim Comey, our former Deputy Attorney General, once said, if you can't have fun working at the Department of Justice, you can't have fun working anywhere. And in some ways, it's a strange comment. This is a very serious institution. Our business is very serious. But everyone in the department who heard him say that instantly understood what he meant. The work is exhilarating. It's highly stimulating. You feel like you're doing something very important for your country and your community. It's very, very satisfying, but the flip side is that it is also fraught with sacrifice. Missed soccer games, lost time with the family of all sorts, always being on call, the phenomenon of even when he or she is home, they're not really home, or they're not all the way home because part of their mind is still wrapped around their work. And for some of the job positions, there is the family fear that maybe one day the loved one won't come home, that he or she will make the ultimate sacrifice for others. We don't have acceptance speeches at this ceremony. This isn't the Academy Awards, but I know that each of the recipients, if they had the opportunity to give an acceptance speech, the first thing they would want to do is thank the members of their family whose love and support made all this possible, and I would like to thank all the family members here right now on their behalf. And finally, I was trying to think of how I could sum up the meaning of this event, and an obnoxious expression came to my mind. It's one that I've always been very annoyed about whenever I've heard it. Perhaps you've heard it too. It's the expression, "It's good enough for government work." And I've never heard anyone inside the government say that. I've only heard it from people outside the government trying to excuse some particularly shoddy effort on their part and explain why it shouldn't have to be redone or made better. And it's always said with this smug air of false superiority, false because it's said by someone who doesn't have any idea what the standards in government are like, and false because they're trying to excuse their own shoddy performance, so they have no business feeling superior to anybody. But I started wondering what this phrase comes from. Was there some big government snafu that led to it being coined? And I did some research and I found something interesting. The phrase, "it's good enough for government work," comes out of World War II. It came out of the country's massive push to supply vehicles and weapons to our soldiers overseas in battle. And when something was good enough for government work, what it meant was that it could satisfy the most demanding and exacting and rigorous of standards. It meant it was good enough to be relied upon by your loved one, your spouse, your barely grown child, your neighbor, when they were operating in the most dangerous of circumstances. And somehow, over the decades, the meaning changed, and it came to mean the opposite of what was originally intended. If the people who use that phrase today could be a fly on the wall in any of the buildings of the department and see the skill and dedication that is exhibited here on a regular basis, I think it would cure their cynicism and inspire them. And I just want to thank everybody who's receiving an award today and your colleagues for doing work that is good enough for government work in its original and richest and most proper sense. Exceptional performance in an extraordinarily important mission. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you for what you do, and it is an honor for all of us on the stage to be able to serve with you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Now let us begin the presentation of the awards. I welcome to the podium on my left Vince McCone, who will serve as the narrator during the presentation of awards. Component heads, please rise and join the Acting Attorney General center stage when your employees' names are announced, and remain for photographs. During the award ceremony, a brief sketch of the recipients' awards and honors will be described. You are invited to read more about the recipients in today's program. Once again, I ask that you please hold your applause until all of the recipients of group awards are announced. We will now begin with the Distinguished Service Awards. The Attorney General's Distinguished Service Award is the second highest form of recognition bestowed by the Department of Justice, and I am pleased to announce that the award is being presented to 59 individuals this year. Vince?
Thank you, sir. The first award is presented for accomplishments in the investigation and prosecution of a prison gang. These trials resulted in convictions and life sentences for more than a dozen murders and attempted murders against members of the ruling California and federal factions of the Aryan Brotherhood. The recipients are, from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, Assistant U.S. Attorneys Mark Avis, Joey Blanche, James Childs, Terry Flynn, and Stephen Wolf. From the ATF's Los Angeles Field Office, Special Agent Michael Giuliani. Ladies and gentlemen, the recipients. The next Distinguished Service Award is presented for the prosecution of former Quest Communications CEO Joseph Naccio on charges of insider trading. A month-long trial resulted in a jury finding Naccio guilty on 19 counts, the largest insider trading verdict ever returned. The recipients are, from the fraud section of the Criminal Division, paralegal specialist Jessica Bachman, Senior Litigation Counsel Colleen Conry, and Trial Attorney Leo Wise. From the FBI's Denver Division, Special Agents J. Miles Guterum and Susan Montoya. From the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Colorado, First Assistant U.S. Attorney Cliff Strickland, Assistant U.S. Attorneys James Owen Hardy and Kevin Traskis, Financial Analyst Dana Chamberlain, and Legal Assistant Grand Jury Coordinator Victoria Soltis. And from the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, Inspector Jojan Henderson. Ladies and gentlemen, the recipients. The next Distinguished Service Award is presented for obtaining the largest jury verdict in the history of the False Claims Act. The case held the corporation Amerigroup accountable for seeking to exclude pregnant women from their insurance pool. The total award in this healthcare fraud case was over $334 million. The recipients are, from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois, Assistant U.S. Attorneys Samuel Cole and Michelle Fox. The fourth Distinguished Service Award is presented to the members of the Guantanamo Bay Detainee Litigation Team. They are honored for the habeas corpus litigation brought on behalf of aliens designated as enemy combatants and captured on foreign soil in the War on Terror. The team members have helped shape the development of law and have helped further the vital interests of the United States. The recipients from the Federal Programs Branch of the Civil Division are Deputy Director Vincent Garvey, Senior Trial Counsel Terry Henry, Lisa Olson, and Judd Subar. Director Joseph Hunt, Paralegal Specialist Janine Johansson, Trial Attorneys Robert Katerberg, Jean Lynn, James Liu, Nicholas Oldham, Nicholas Patterson, James Schwartz, Andrew Warden, and Edward White. From the Southern District of Mississippi, Assistant U.S. Attorney Mark Perez. And from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Deputy General Counsel Priya Naroni. Ladies and gentlemen, the recipients. On March 10, 2003, two New York City Police Department detectives were murdered execution-style during an undercover firearms purchase. The recipients investigated and prosecuted 5 individuals for this heinous crime. The recipients are, from ATF's New York and New Jersey field divisions, Special Agents Andrew Hilt, Keltar Moy, Thomas Shelton, and John Elwager. Also, Group Supervisor Thomas Kelly, from the Eastern District of New York, Assistant U.S. Attorneys Morris Fodeman, Colleen Kavanaugh, Jack Smith, and Glenn McGorty. Ladies and gentlemen, the recipients. The Overseas Shipholding Team is honored for its outstanding achievement in obtaining the largest criminal penalty in a case involving deliberate pollution from ships and the intentional falsification of ship records. This prosecution has helped to bring greater scrutiny to this critical problem. The recipients are, from the Environmental Crime Section of the Environment and Natural Resources Division, Special Litigation Counsel Gregory Linson, Trial Attorneys Leah Pettis. From the District of Massachusetts, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jonathan Mitchell. From the Eastern District of North Carolina, Assistant U.S. Attorney Banamathi Rangarajan. From the Eastern